Hello there. Hello, hello, hello. The war in Ukraine has many of us adults unsettled. What are our children feeling? What are our teens feeling? Well, today on Stress Talk, I'm going to share 5 constructive ways for you to engage your child and your teen in a conversation during distressing times. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. Hey, how are you? I hope all is well with you. I'm enjoying the bright sunshine, the cooler temperatures, and yeah, we have lots of pollen in my area, so I'm a little stuffed up. But other than that, it's a beautiful day here in Southeast Georgia. I hope it's the same wherever you are. I want to talk about the what's going on in the world right now because when there are conflicts in the world, we're on high alert. Everyone is on high alert, and it's very scary. Hi, Alice. Good to see you. Hey there, classmate. It's good to see you today. We're on high alert, and we often don't think about what our children are feeling. Well, the reality is that our children are feeling very similar things as the adults. And it's the adult's responsibility to help the children, help our children to understand what's going on, as well as how they can manage and cope during this difficult time. As a reminder, before I get into my little brief presentation today, I'm going to ask you to follow me on Instagram and Facebook, as well as Twitter on ML Consultants. That's at ML Consultants. Also, if you don't know, I have a newsletter. The newsletter comes out every week, and it's called the Smiles Newsletter. Get it? Smiles? Smiles Newsletter? I named it Smiles because when I've seen women in my private practice, when they leave, I notice that they're generally smiling. For the most part, they're smiling when they leave. They come in and they're feeling overwhelmed, discouraged, they're questioning what's going on in their lives, but when they leave, they're smiling. So I named it the Smiles Newsletter. The Smiles Newsletter has tips. It usually will link you to my blog that comes out every week. And also, I usually add a video clip of something that is pertinent as it relates to stress management and stress relief. So, this is the link to get to the Smiles newsletter. It's my link tree. It will have links to many of the resources that I offer, but the Smiles newsletter link will be at the very top. So I'd like for you to sign up, subscribe to Smiles. Okay, let's get into what we're talking about today. Um, and I want to share with you why I think this is important. It's important because um, I come in contact with a number of children and young people um, on a daily basis. And the kids are, as we would say, off the chain. You know, the kids are like, what's going on? What's happening in the world? What's happening here? And they've kind of checked out. Well, the adults are struggling to engage them. Well, I believe that's because the adults are struggling. We are having a hard time. And so if the adults are having a hard time, can you imagine what the kids are going through, our children are going through? And so I believe that it's incumbent upon us to provide them with the resources that they need to understand and to cope with the difficulties that we're currently facing. So that's why I wanted to talk about the five constructive ways to engage and talk to your children during times of distress. So I've prefaced the war in Ukraine, Russia's invasion of the country of Ukraine, and the subsequent war that's being waged. But this is a this is a framework that can be used for any type of distress, not just world distress, but distress that you might be experiencing in your home. And so I'm going to talk about these five things. Certainly, these are not the only, this is not the only way to engage your child or young people in a discussion during distressing times, but it is one way. So I'm just going to get started. And as you know, I have my little PowerPoint presentation here. Um, and I'm just going to go through these slides. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them into the comment box. If you've not done so, also please give Facebook permission to use your image and your name when you leave a comment. That way I can acknowledge you. I cannot acknowledge you properly. All right, let's get started. One of the steps before we get into the first step that I'm going to share, one of the things that I believe is important for adults to do is adults need to recognize and acknowledge their own fears, concerns, and biases when it comes to things that are distressing. And I'm using the conflict in Ukraine as an example, but many of us, many adults right now are experiencing our own concerns about safety. Is our country safe? Will we be attacked in some way? We've read and heard news reports that another country is threatening to attack us if we intervene in what's going on in Ukraine. So this makes us fearful. What will that attack look like if we are attacked? So we need to acknowledge how we're feeling about it. Not only do we have concerns for our own safety and our own country's safety, we also have concerns about the well being of Ukraine and the countries surrounding Ukraine, countries that have been friendly towards us, countries that, um, just like we go about our daily lives, people in those countries go about their daily lives. And then all of a sudden, things changed and changed drastically. So we have concerns about the well being of Ukraine itself. We also have concerns about the financial fallout, particularly here in this country. We've been through a great deal trying to deal with the pandemic over the last several years and the financial impact that it's had on families as well as communities. So here we are now with this conflict that's in Europe, but we know that it's affecting us financially. Number one, gas prices are high, higher than I've ever seen them, even higher than they were during the oil embargo back in the 70s. I don't know if percentage wise, if they're greater than they were, increased more than they did back then, but they are extremely high. And we know that when gas prices go up, everything else goes up. Not only are we looking at the financial impact here in our own country, we're also looking at empty shelves. shelves that are we're accustomed to having fully stocked in the grocery stores and in department stores and are empty. And we here in the United States are not used to that. We're not accustomed to that. It's foreign to us. We don't understand it. We don't know how to deal with it. So we're concerned about the financial fallout. And there are also concerns about who we should believe when they're delivering information about what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on as it relates to the financial situation here in our country, as it also relates to supplies, supply and demand. Who do we believe? So, it's important before having a conversation with your child or your teenager that you have an understanding and you are honest with yourself about your fears, your concerns, and your biases. And when I talk about biases, I'm talking about um, who you blame because we always want to lay blame on something or someone, and having an understanding of how where we are in terms of our fears, concerns, and biases will enable us to have an open and honest conversation with our children. And that's what they need, especially in distressing times. So, what's the first thing that a parent or an adult who wants to talk to a child or a young person about what's going on right now and what's happening in our world? The first thing is just to bring it up. Bring up the topic. And what you may find is that children don't want to talk about it, or teenagers don't want to talk about it. And that's okay if they don't want to, but bring it up and give them the opportunity to say they don't want to. Okay? Just just ask them. A lot's going on. How are you feeling about it? Ask them what they know about it. But you want to bring it up because that opens the door for them to start a discussion, but it also opens the door for you to have an opportunity to assess where they are. Is what is going on causing them to feel sad? Is it causing them to feel depressed? Do they feel anxious? Are they afraid? Are they concerned? Are they worried? It opens the door, and all you have to do is bring it up. Just bring up the topic. When you bring the topic up, remember to use age appropriate language so that they can understand. You're certainly not going to talk to a 5-year-old in the same way that you talk to a 15-year-old, right? I mean, their vocabulary is different and their ability to understand broader concepts are going to be different. So you want to use age appropriate language so that they can understand. If they say no, they don't want to talk about it, that's okay. Allow them that opportunity. Let them know that it's okay that they don't want to talk about it. However, leave the door open so that if they choose to, or if they come back to you later, you will be available for them to have the discussion. And then, thirdly, you have bite sized conversations. I mean, this is a very big deal that's going on, right? But have it can be overwhelming if we try to talk about it until to ad nauseum, until we have exhausted all angles. Have bite-sized conversations or cover bite-sized topics. Small conversations, short topics, small topics. We can't solve everything in one setting. So we want to just lighten the mood by just speaking in short increments of time. The other thing is, I would also suggest if you're talking to younger children, you can use books that are designed for children to understand conflicts and conflict resolution. Your child's teacher can certainly recommend books that are appropriate for children to understand conflicts and conflict resolution, or you can talk to a medical professional or a clinical professional, a therapist, in other words. Reading a book with young children can help them to have a better understanding of what's going on in Ukraine, because you can reference some of the things that are going on in Ukraine just by using the book, the age appropriate book. Next, as I alluded to earlier, ask your child what they've seen already or what they've heard already. Remember, I said that teenagers, and even not even teenagers, younger children, middle school age children, get their news from the internet, from social media, as well as their peers. They're talking about it, right? And they're talking about it among themselves. And they get their news from the internet, Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook a little bit, but not so much Facebook. That's for us older people now. Facebook is our space. But TikTok, Reels, they're getting their news from the internet and from social media. So you want to ask your child, what do you know already? What have you heard? This will also give, as I said before, it will help you to understand how upset they really are about the situation. Some kids may say, "Oh, it's no big deal. It's not as big as, the fight that was in our cafeteria the other day," right? And some may be very upset because they don't know what it means for their future. So when you ask them, you can understand what they are feeling. Also, by asking them what they know, what they've heard, what they've seen, it will also help you to gain an understanding of any misunderstandings or rumors or information that may be skewed or inaccurate, so that you can help them to understand the facts as much as you know them, or direct them to sources where they can get facts and not just innuendo, rumors. They can actually get facts. Also, we have to acknowledge that, reports change and reports may not be totally accurate. And so we have to acknowledge to our children that there may be some confusion around some reports, because everyone may not know the entire story. They may only have a part of it. Also, there may be conflicts in reporting due to differing points of view. So we need to help them to understand that that is really just the state of news today. News, the 24-hour news cycle. It's different than it was 40 years ago when we only had news, at 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock and 6:30. So we can help them to understand that there are news sources that they can go to get meaningful reports about what is going on. Not just opinion, but actual reports about what's going on. So, first, we want to bring the topic up, speak to our child using age appropriate language. Then we want to ask them what they've seen, what they've heard, what they know, and we can listen to hear if they are just speaking, if they are actually speaking factual information or if it's rumored information. Also, we can see where they are. Are they upset? Are they, oblivious? Do they care? Or are they really frightened? And we can take action from there. Next, just have an understanding that some children may be more sensitive to distressing situations than others. Some children have a way in which they can overlook situations. Some children become very frightened. Other children will respond the way they see adults respond. And I'll give you a quick example of such. When our youngest daughter, and both our children, but primarily our oldest daughter, that is, when our oldest daughter was learning to walk, we decided that if when she fell, we would not make a big deal out of it because we felt that if we made a big deal out of her falling, then she would become afraid. We felt that if she fell and we went, "Oh no, oh my goodness, you fell. Oh, are you all right?" We felt that that would frighten her. So our tactic was when she fell, we would start laughing. We go, "Oh my goodness, you fell." Ha ha ha. We would make, or we wouldn't do anything. We go, "Oh," and we go, "Come on, get up." We were very careful in how we um, monitored her learning to walk. As a result, if she fell, she didn't get upset. She didn't start crying. She wasn't a baby who started crying. She just get up and keep moving. We did the same thing with our second child, our youngest. And again, if she fell, she learned a little differently, but if she fell, it wasn't a big deal. She just got up. They learned that it wasn't something to be upset about. So remember that children will take their cues from the adults in their lives. So, knowing this and knowing that some children may be more sensitive to distress than others, what we want to remember and want to keep in mind is that children may have a concern for their own safety, just as adults have concerns for our safety. Also, children, if they hear of people being mistreated for no apparent reason, it may cause them to be angry. So you want to monitor that. Also, children and teens may become fearful due to limited food or limited access to necessities. Remember, I talked about the shelves being empty, and not all shelves, but our shelves are a little bit are barer than normal. So our children may be fearful and may have questions around that. They may wonder, are we going to run out of food? Are we not going to be able to have gas to get to soccer? What's going to happen? Are we going to, it can snowball. So we want to just be very mindful of how our children are responding to what they're seeing, hearing, and what they've learned. There's another aspect of this. Children who have experienced trauma, have lived in depressed areas, poverty-stricken areas, may be more sensitive to what's going on than children who um, do not have those concerns. So we want to be extra sensitive to children and to children who may have um, symptoms of PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, who experience depression, and who experience anxiety. So we want to be extra sensitive to those children as well. So when the conversation starts, how do we even have this question? How do we even respond to some of the things our children might say? Well, basically, we want to respond as honestly as we can and provide honest reassurance. We don't have all of the answers, and we can say that. We don't have all of the answers. We can share with them that we have similar concerns as they. We can also share with them history, that history gives us um, the assurance that that we will be okay in this country. We can remind them that historically, although people in this country have experienced difficult times, have experienced hard times, we've been able to, as a people, we've been able to pull through. And so we can have that kind of conversation with them. We can also correct any misunderstandings or any misinformation that they share with us that they've seen, heard, or that they've learned. And, it's okay to say, I don't know. IDK is I don't know. It's okay to say that. We can tell our children, I don't have the answer to that. And that's okay. They will respect us for being able to say that. The other thing is, we shouldn't minimize their fear or anything that they are expressing, because fear will display itself as anxiety, sadness, or anger. So we don't want to minimize it. If our child is angry or displays anger, it could be because they're afraid. Excuse me. I need to take a sip. Thank you. I am drinking tea today. I'm drinking sweet tea today. um, so we don't want to minimize it. We don't want to tell them they shouldn't feel the way they are feeling. We should not tell them that their feelings don't matter. We want to acknowledge how they feel. We want to say, I hear you. I can see how you would feel that way. If they're angry, we want to explore where that anger is coming from. If they're sad, we want to explore where that sadness is coming from. If they're feeling anxious, we want to, again, explore where that's coming from and then provide honest reassurance. And then we want to help them to develop healthy coping skills. And that's a whole presentation in itself. But basically, when we have healthy coping skills, we see things the way they are, but we don't dwell on it. We seek to problem solve, and we function in a mindful way. We are curious, we don't use judgment, and we stay in the present moment. We bring our awareness in the present moment. So, when we're talking about, when we're talking to our children, We just want to give them basic information, and we want to make it simple, and we want to be direct. And when we start the conversation, that's our focus. We're providing simple and direct information. And we want to basically answer for them, because they may have these questions. How will this affect our family, and how will it affect me personally? And you can address that. And again, use what you know from history, use what you know about your own life, but be honest with them about how you feel, what you're feeling, and where they can find factual information. Also, allow them to ask questions. If you don't know, it's okay. IDK, I don't know. It's okay to say. And then listen and watch for clues that they want more information, or listen and watch for clues that they're done with the conversation. Remember that developmental age, as well as personal experiences of a child, play a great role. And you'll want to have clarity about that, because you'll want to mete out an appropriate amount of detail so that the child can handle it. And you'll want to have an understanding of that so that you'll know how far to take the conversation. That will be important too. The other thing that I would also suggest is that when you're talking with your child or your teenager, share information, share and talk without opinion about um, how you feel our government, other countries, or entities are doing to improve the situation for the Ukrainian people and keeping us safe. Because our opinion, our adult opinions, can often frighten our children and cause them a great deal of concern as well. So try to also measure the opinion that you share and the way you share that opinion. It's okay to share opinion, but you want to measure how you're sharing that opinion. All of this information that I'm sharing came from the National Center for School Crisis and Bereavement. They've put together a document to help parents and caregivers talk to their children and teenagers about the war in Ukraine. And it gives a lot of detail that I found helpful. And I just basically summarized the information for you. If you're interested in getting that information, you can certainly go to the National Center for School Crisis and Bereavement. And if you'd like, just shoot me an email and I'll get you the link to go there as well. So that is all for today. I wish you all well. I wish your week starts off with, I was going to say with a bang, but I wish your weekend starts off with joy, as well as with a lot of energy. Not only that, may you have everything that you need to meet the difficulties that you might face during this next week. That's all for me for now. I'll see you next week. And as always, take good care.